Kim Tae-ho wiped sweat from his face as he fixed another broken pipe in the lower levels of Cosmic Unity Station. The massive space station was home to thousands of beings from 8 different species. 7 alien races and humans all lived and worked together here, far from Earth in the cold darkness of space. Tae-ho was 28 years old and had been working on the station for 5 years. He was good at his job, very good. He could fix things that others could not. He could solve problems that made other engineers scratch their heads. But nobody seemed to care about that. "Hey, human," a voice called from behind him. Tae-ho turned around and saw Vextar walking toward him. Vextar was a Ziltharian, one of the alien species on the station. He was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. He was also the chief science officer, which made him very important. "Yes, sir," Tae-ho said, putting down his tools. Vextar looked at the pipe that Tae-ho had just fixed. "This repair was supposed to take 2 days. You finished it in 4 hours." "Yes, sir. I found a better way to do it." Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. "A better way? You humans always think you know better than everyone else. You probably broke something else while you were playing around." Tae-ho felt his face get hot. "I did not break anything. I checked everything twice. The system is working better now than it was before." "We will see about that," Vextar said. He walked away without another word. This happened almost every day. No matter what Tae-ho did, no matter how well he did his job, someone always found something wrong with it. The aliens treated all humans badly, but they seemed to treat Tae-ho worse than the others. Even other humans on the station avoided him. Dr. Yoon Dae-sung was the head of the engineering department. He was human, but he spent most of his time trying to make the aliens like him. He often made jokes about Tae-ho in front of the aliens. "Tae-ho thinks he is so smart," Dr. Yoon would say, "but he is just a maintenance worker. He should know his place." The only person who was kind to Tae-ho was Lee Hana. She worked in the communications department and had been his friend since they were children on Earth. She was one of the few people who knew how smart Tae-ho really was. "You should not let them treat you like this," Hana said as they ate lunch together in the human section of the station. "You are smarter than half the engineers here, alien or human." Tae-ho pushed his food around on his plate. "What am I supposed to do? Fight them? They would just kick me off the station." "You could apply for a transfer to a different department. You could show them what you can really do." "I tried that 3 times. They always say no. They say I do not have the right education or the right experience." Hana reached across the table and touched his hand. "Your time will come." "I know it will." After lunch, Tae-ho went back to work. He was checking the air filters on level 7 when his computer started beeping. There was an emergency alert from the sensor department. Something big was coming toward the station. Tae-ho ran to the nearest control panel and looked at the data. A ship was drifting toward them, but it was not sending any signals. It was not responding to the station's calls. The ship looked very old and was badly damaged. Tae-ho studied the energy readings from the ship. Something was strange about them. The energy patterns were unlike anything he had ever seen before. They were too complex, too advanced. This was not technology from any of the known species in the galaxy. He ran to the communications center to find Hana. "You need to look at this," he said, showing her his computer tablet. Hana looked at the data. "What am I looking at?" "The derelict ship that just came into our space. Look at these energy readings. This technology is far beyond anything we have." Hana's eyes grew wide. "Are you sure?" "I am sure. We need to tell the Science Council about this." They went to the main science lab where the council was meeting. Commander Vextar was there, along with representatives from all the other species. Dr. Yoon was there too, trying to look important. "Excuse me," Tae-ho said, walking into the room. "I need to report something about the derelict ship." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to look at him. Vextar's face showed anger and disgust. "What are you doing here, maintenance worker?" Vextar asked. "This is a meeting for real scientists." "I found something important about the ship," Tae-ho said. He held up his tablet. "The energy readings show technology that is far more advanced than anything we know." Vextar laughed, and soon the other aliens were laughing too. Even Dr. Yoon was smiling. "Listen to this human," Vextar said. "He thinks he understands advanced technology. He thinks he can teach us something new." "The energy patterns are completely different," Tae-ho said, trying to explain. "They suggest the ship is millions of years old, but the technology is still active. This could change everything we know about galactic history. Enough, Vextar shouted. You humans are all the same. You are barely evolved primitives playing with toys you do not understand. You think every piece of junk that floats through space is some great discovery. The other council members nodded and made sounds of agreement. Dr. Yoon stepped forward. I apologize for this interruption, Dr. Yoon said to the aliens. Taeho sometimes gets excited about things he does not understand. I will make sure he returns to his proper duties. See that you do, Vextar said, and make sure he stays in the maintenance areas where he belongs. Taeho felt his face burn with shame and anger. He looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. Some looked amused, others looked annoyed. None of them believed him. I know what I saw, Taeho said quietly. What you saw was a piece of space junk, Vextar said. Nothing more. Now get out of here before I have security remove you. Taeho left the room and walked slowly back to his quarters. His hands were shaking with anger and frustration. He had made an important discovery, but nobody would listen to him because he was just a human maintenance worker. That night, Taeho sat in his small room and stared out the window at the derelict ship floating in space. The station's security had put up barriers around it, but they were not planning to investigate it seriously. They thought it was just another piece of space trash, but Taeho knew better. He had studied the energy readings for hours. This ship was special. It held secrets that could change everything, and if the council would not listen to him, maybe he would have to investigate it himself. He looked at his work schedule. Tomorrow was his day off. The maintenance bay would be empty. The security barriers were designed to keep the ship away from the station, not to keep people away from the ship. Taeho made a decision that would change his life forever. He was going to visit that ship himself. Taeho waited until the night shift started. Most of the station was quiet now. Only essential workers were awake, and they were busy with their own tasks. He made his way to the maintenance bay where the small repair pods were kept. He had done this trip many times before when repairing the outside of the station. The pods were simple to operate, and he knew how to disable the tracking systems without setting off any alarms. Within minutes, he was floating through space toward the derelict ship. As he got closer, Taeho realized just how massive the ship was. It was at least 3 times larger than Cosmic Unity Station. The metal was dark and covered with strange markings. Some parts of the ship were clearly damaged, but other sections looked almost new despite their obvious age. Finding a docking port took some time. When he finally found one, Taeho was surprised that his pod connected easily. The ship's systems automatically accepted his request to board. That was strange for a ship that was supposed to be dead. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Taeho stepped inside wearing his repair suit and breathing mask. The air inside the ship was breathable according to his sensors, but he did not want to take any chances. The corridors inside the ship were huge. The ceilings were at least 4 meters high, and the hallways were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. Everything was made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. But as Taeho walked deeper into the ship, lights began to turn on automatically ahead of him. "Hello?" Taeho called out. His voice echoed in the empty halls. "Is anyone here?" There was no answer, but the ship continued to respond to his presence. Doors opened as he approached them. Elevators activated when he stepped inside. It was as if the ship was alive and waiting for him. After walking for what felt like an hour, Taeho found himself in a massive room filled with strange machines and computer panels. The room was circular and must have been 50 meters across. In the center was a raised platform with what looked like a control chair. As soon as Taeho stepped onto the platform, the entire room came to life. Lights blazed on everywhere. Computer screens flickered to existence. And then a voice spoke. "Welcome, descendant." Taeho spun around looking for the source of the voice. "Who is there?" "Where are you?" "I am Aria. I am the archive repository intelligence that has been waiting for your return." "My return? I have never been here before. Not you specifically, but your kind. I have been waiting for humans to find this ship for a very long time." A hologram appeared in front of Taeho. It looked like a woman, but she was made of blue light and seemed to float in the air. "I do not understand," Taeho said. "What is this place? How old is this ship?" "This ship is approximately 2.3 million years old," Aria said. "It was built by your ancestors." Taeho laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "My ancestors? 2 million years ago, humans were barely learning to use fire. No, Arya said gently. The humans you think of as your ancestors were not your true beginning. You are the descendants of a great race called the First Builders. They created this ship and many others. They also created most of the intelligent species that now populate the galaxy. Tejo sat down hard in the control chair. This was too much to believe. That is impossible. The aliens are older than humans. They had space travel while we were still living in caves. The species you call aliens were created by the First Builders as part of a great experiment. They were given technology and knowledge to help them grow and develop. But the First Builders kept the greatest secrets for themselves. Arya waved her hand and the walls of the room became transparent. Tejo could see space outside, but now there were images floating in the air around him. He saw pictures of great cities among the stars. He saw ships larger than planets. He saw beings that looked human but were clearly more advanced than any human he had ever known. The First Builders were your true ancestors, Arya continued, but they made a great mistake. They became too powerful, too proud. They began to think they were gods. Some of them wanted to rule over all life in the galaxy. What happened to them? There was a war. Not a war with weapons, but a war of ideas. In the end, the wise ones among the First Builders made a difficult choice. They gave up their advanced technology and their long lives. They chose to become mortal again. They chose to start over as a simple species on a distant planet. Earth, Tejo whispered. Yes, Earth. They hoped that by becoming human again they could learn to be better than they were before. They could learn wisdom instead of just power. Tejo stood up and walked around the room. This was all too incredible to believe, but the evidence was right in front of him. Why are you telling me this? Why me? Because this ship is a test, Arya said. The First Builders left it here for their descendants to find. Only a true descendant can unlock the knowledge and technology inside this ship. But they must prove they are worthy. How do I prove that? By passing the trials. The First Builders learned that power without wisdom is dangerous. Anyone who wants to claim their heritage must show they have learned this lesson. What kind of trials? Arya smiled. Tests of intelligence, yes, but also tests of creativity, courage, and moral judgment. The machines here will study how you think and how you solve problems. They will see if you are ready for the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. Tejo thought about this. Back on the station, everyone treated him like he was stupid. They said humans were primitive and worthless, but now he was being told that humans were actually the descendants of the most advanced race in galactic history. What if I fail the tests? Then you go back to your station and live your life as before. The ship will hide itself again and wait for another descendant to find it. And if I pass, then you will gain access to knowledge and technology beyond your current understanding. But more importantly, you will learn the truth about your people and their destiny. Tejo looked around the incredible room. He thought about Commander Vextar and how he had laughed at him. He thought about Dr. Yoon and how he had been embarrassed in front of everyone. He thought about all the times he had been told he was not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. I want to try, he said. Are you sure? Once you begin, you cannot stop until the trials are complete. I am sure. Arya nodded. Then let us begin. The room changed around them. The walls became covered with complex symbols and equations. Floating screens appeared in the air, showing puzzles and problems that made Tejo's head spin just looking at them. The first trial is a test of pure intelligence, Arya said. You must solve these mathematical and logical problems. But remember, the First Builders did not think like the species that came after them. You must think like a human. Tejo approached the first screen. The problem looked impossible at first, but as he studied it, he began to see patterns. Not the kind of patterns that a computer would find, but patterns that required intuition and creativity to understand. Hours passed as Tejo worked on problem after problem. His mind felt like it was stretching in ways it never had before. But slowly he began to understand. The problems were not just about finding the right answer. They were about finding the most elegant answer, the most creative answer, the most human answer. When he finished the last problem, Arya looked pleased. Very good. You think like your ancestors did. You use logic, but you also use imagination and intuition. This is what makes humans special. What is the next trial? The next trial will test your moral judgment. But first, you should rest. The trials are designed to push you to your limits. Tejo realized he was exhausted. Arya showed him to a small room with a bed and food. As he lay down to sleep, he thought about what he had learned. If it was true, then everything he thought he knew about humans and their place in the galaxy was wrong. But even as he drifted off to sleep, Taeho heard a sound that made his heart race. It was an alarm coming from his repair pod. Someone back on the station was trying to contact him. His unauthorized trip had been discovered. Taeho woke up to the sound of his communicator buzzing urgently. The small device was flashing red, which meant emergency communications from the station. He had been asleep for only a few hours, but he felt more rested than he had in months. "Taeho, where are you?" It was Hana's voice, and she sounded worried. "Security is looking for you. They know you took a maintenance pod." Taeho grabbed his communicator. "I'm fine, Hana, I'm safe. Where are you?" "Commander Vextar is furious. He says you stole station property." Before Taeho could answer, Arya appeared beside him. "Many ships are approaching this location," she said. "Large warships from multiple species. They are coming for this vessel." Taeho felt his stomach drop. "How many ships?" 17 so far, with more arriving. "The signal this ship sent when you activated the trials has been detected across the galaxy. Every major power knows something important is here." Taeho spoke into his communicator. "Hana, listen to me carefully. Big trouble is coming to the station. Many alien warships are heading this way. You need to warn everyone." "What are you talking about? What warships?" "Just trust me. And tell my sister So Young that I might need her help soon." Captain Lee So Young commanded a human defense ship called the New Soul. It was one of the few human military vessels allowed in this sector of space. Taeho hoped she was close enough to help if things went bad. "You need to return to your station immediately," Arya said. "If you are found here, they will assume you have already claimed the ancient technology. They will try to force you to give it to them, but I have not finished the trials yet. The trials can be completed later. Right now you need to leave before they find you here." Taeho ran back to his maintenance pod. As he flew toward Cosmic Unity Station, he could see ships approaching from multiple directions. They were huge warships, much larger than anything humans had built. Some of them had weapons that could destroy entire planets. When Taeho docked at the station, security guards were waiting for him. They grabbed him as soon as he stepped out of the pod and dragged him to the detention center. Commander Vextar was there, along with Dr. Yoon and several other alien officials. "Where have you been?" Vextar demanded. "I went to examine the derelict ship," Taeho said. There was no point in lying now. "You had no authorization for such a mission. You stole station property and violated multiple safety protocols." "I found something important. That ship is not what you think it is." Vextar laughed coldly. "More of your human fantasies. You found nothing but an old piece of space junk. The ship is over 2 million years old, but its technology is still active. It contains knowledge that could change everything we know about galactic civilization." "Enough," Vextar shouted. "Your lies become more ridiculous every time you tell them." Dr. Yoon stepped forward. "Commander, I apologize for this human's behavior. He has always had an overactive imagination. I recommend we simply punish him for theft and return him to his duties." But before Vextar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. An automated voice announced, "All personnel report to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching." Through the window of the detention center, they could see the alien warships taking positions around the station. Some of them were so large that they blocked out the stars. "What is happening?" Dr. Yoon asked nervously. A communication came through on the station's main channel. "This is Admiral Kixnall of the Hegemony Empire. We claim this sector and all ancient artifacts within it. Surrender the technology immediately or face destruction." Another voice broke in. "This is Fleet Commander Nixara of the Stellar Collective. We do not recognize the Hegemony's claim. All ancient technology belongs to the galactic community." Soon, representatives from 7 different alien powers were arguing over the station's communication system. They all wanted the ancient ship and its technology. None of them cared about the humans who lived on the station. Vextar looked at Taeho with new interest. "What did you really find on that ship, human?" "I told you. Advanced technology beyond anything we currently understand." "You are lying. Humans are too primitive to understand such things." "Then why are all these warships here?" Taeho asked. "Your own sensors must have detected the energy surge when the ship activated. You know, something important happened." Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. He was beginning to realize that maybe the human was telling the truth after all. The door to the detention center burst open. Hana ran in, followed by Taiho's friend Park Jinwoo and several other humans. The alien fleets are demanding that we turn over whoever activated the ancient ship, Hana said breathlessly. They say they will destroy the station if we do not comply. Turn over who? Vextar asked. They do not know who it was, but they know someone from this station boarded the ship. They want that person handed over immediately. Vextar looked at Taiho with a mixture of fear and greed. What exactly did you do on that ship? I spoke with the ship's artificial intelligence. I learned about its true origins. And what are those origins? Taiho took a deep breath. He knew that what he was about to say would sound impossible, but he had to try to make them understand. The ship was built by an ancient race called the First Builders. They were the first intelligent species in the galaxy. They created most of the other species as part of a great experiment in evolution and consciousness. The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at Taiho as if he had lost his mind. The First Builders gave technology and knowledge to their created species to help them develop. But eventually, the First Builders realized they had become too powerful and proud. They chose to give up their advanced civilization and start over as a simple species on a distant planet. What planet? Vextar asked quietly. Earth. Humans are the descendants of the First Builders. The silence that followed was broken by Dr. Yoon's nervous laughter. That is ridiculous. Humans are the youngest species in the galaxy. We barely achieved spaceflight a few hundred years ago. Because our ancestors chose to start over, Taiho said. They wanted to learn wisdom instead of just accumulating power. Vextar stood up suddenly. Even if this insane story were true, it would make humans the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It would mean you have a claim to technology that could make you rulers of everything. That is not what the First Builders wanted, Taiho said. They wanted their descendants to be better than they were. Another communication came through from outside. Station inhabitants, you have 1 hour to surrender the person who activated the ancient vessel. If you do not comply, we will board your station and take them by force. Vexitar grabbed Taiho by the arm. You are coming with me. We are going to give you to them. Wait, Hana said. If Taiho is right about this, then giving him to the alien fleets could be very dangerous for all humans. I do not care about humans, Vextar snarled. I care about this station and everyone on it. But if humans really are descended from the First Builders, Jinwoo said, then maybe we have a right to that technology. Humans have no rights. Vextar shouted. You are a servant species. You exist at our pleasure. That was when Wang Do-hyun, another of Taiho's friends, did something unexpected. He activated the detention center's emergency lockdown. Thick metal barriers slammed down over all the doors and windows. Nobody is going anywhere until we figure this out properly, Do-hyun said. But outside, the alien fleets were running out of patience. Through the sealed windows, they could see shuttlecraft leaving the warships and heading toward the station. The boarding parties were coming whether they were invited or not. You have doomed us all, Vextar said to Do-hyun. Maybe, Do-hyun replied, or maybe it is time to find out what humans are really capable of. Taiho looked at his friends who had chosen to stand with him, even though it meant going against the most powerful beings in the galaxy. For the first time in his life, he felt like he truly belonged somewhere. But he also knew that time was running out. Soon the alien boarding parties would break into the station. When they did, they would demand answers that could start a war across the entire galaxy. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the station corridors. The alien boarding parties were breaking through the outer airlocks. They would reach the detention center within minutes. We have to get Taiho out of here, Hana said urgently. If they capture him, who knows what they will do. Wang Do-hyun was working on the emergency lockdown controls. I can open one exit, but it leads to the maintenance tunnels. You would have to crawl through the ventilation system to reach the docking bay. Do it, Taiho said. Vextar grabbed Taiho's arm again. You are not going anywhere. I am going to turn you over to them and save this station. That was when Park Jinwoo surprised everyone. He was usually quiet and gentle, but now he stepped between Vextar and Taiho. Let him go. Get out of my way, human. No. Jinwoo's voice was calm but firm. Taiho is my friend. I will not let you give him to them. Vextar raised his hand to strike Jinwoo, but Hana caught his wrist. Touch him and you will regret it. How dare you threaten me? I am a senior officer. And we are humans standing up for one of our own, Hana said. Maybe it is time you learned that we are not as helpless as you think. Do-hyun got the emergency exit open. Go now before they break through the main doors. Tae-ho looked at his friends. They were risking everything to help him escape. Come with me. All of you. Someone has to stay here and slow them down, Jin-woo said. Go. We will be fine. Tae-ho crawled into the maintenance tunnel just as the main door to the detention center exploded inward. He could hear shouting and the sound of energy weapons charging up, but he forced himself to keep moving through the narrow tunnel. The ventilation system was a maze of metal passages that ran throughout the station. Tae-ho had maintained these tunnels for years, so he knew every shortcut and every exit. Within 20 minutes, he reached a service hatch near the docking bay. But when he looked out, his heart sank. Alien soldiers were everywhere. They had taken control of the entire docking area. There was no way to reach his maintenance pod. Then he heard a familiar voice on his communicator. Little brother, are you receiving this? It was So Young, his sister and the captain of the human defense ship New Seoul. So Young, where are you? About 3 kilometers away from the station. I came as soon as I got Hana's message. What is your situation? Bad. The station is overrun with alien troops. They are looking for me. Why are they looking for you? Tae-ho quickly explained what he had discovered on the ancient ship. There was a long silence before So Young responded. That is either the most incredible story I've ever heard or the most incredible lie, she said finally. Either way, I'm not letting them capture my little brother. Can you get to escape pod bay 7? I think so. Why? Because I am going to create a distraction that will draw their attention away from that area. When I do, you run for the escape pods and get out of there. What kind of distraction? The kind that might start a war, So Young said grimly. 10 minutes later, Tae-ho heard explosions coming from the other side of the station. Through the corridors, he could hear alien voices shouting orders and the sound of running feet. So Young was attacking the alien ships, drawing their forces away from the interior of the station. Tae-ho ran through the now empty corridors toward escape pod bay 7. He could see through the windows that space around the station was filled with energy beams and explosions. The New Seoul was a small ship compared to the alien warships, but So Young was using its speed and maneuverability to avoid their weapons while striking at their weak points. He reached the escape pod bay just as his communicator crackled again. Tae-ho, you need to get to that ancient ship as fast as you can, So Young said. Her voice was strained and he could hear alarms blaring in the background of her ship. Why? Because I just intercepted communications between the alien fleets. They are planning to destroy the ship rather than let any one faction control it. If what you told me is true, we cannot let that happen. Tae-ho launched his escape pod just as a massive explosion lit up the space near the station. One of the alien warships had scored a direct hit on the New Seoul. Tae-ho watched in horror as his sister's ship spun out of control, trailing fire and debris. So Young. Respond. There was only static. Fighting back tears, Tae-ho piloted his escape pod toward the ancient ship. Behind him, the alien fleets were regrouping for their final assault. They had decided that if they could not have the ship, then nobody could. When Tae-ho docked with the ancient vessel, Arya was waiting for him in the main chamber. You have returned sooner than expected, she said. They are going to destroy the ship. We have to finish the trials now. The trials cannot be rushed. They are designed to test your character under pressure, but they must be completed properly. How much time do we have? Arya's expression became grim. The alien fleets are charging their planet-killer weapons. Approximately 18 minutes until they fire. Then we finish this in 18 minutes. Arya nodded. The final trial is the most important. It is the same test that your ancestors failed long ago. You will be given ultimate power over life and death in the galaxy. The question is, what will you do with it? The chamber around them changed. Tae-ho found himself standing in what looked like a command center for the entire galaxy. Screens showed every inhabited world, every space station, every ship. With the controls in this room, he could destroy civilizations or create them. He could make himself emperor of everything. This is the power of the first builders, Arya said. They used it to create species and guide evolution across the galaxy. But eventually they began to see themselves as gods. They forgot that with great power comes great responsibility. Tae-ho looked at the incredible displays around him. He could see Cosmic Unity Station, still surrounded by alien warships. He could see his sister's damaged ship drifting in space. He could see Earth, his homeworld, peaceful and unaware of the crisis happening in deep space. "What happened when the first builders failed this test?" he asked. Some of them wanted to rule over all life as eternal gods. Others wanted to grant the same power to every intelligent being in the galaxy. Both choices would have led to chaos and destruction. What is the right choice? That is what you must decide. But remember, your ancestors chose a different path. They gave up their power and chose to become mortal again. They chose to start over as humans on Earth because they believed that wisdom was more important than strength. Taiho studied the controls. He could feel the immense power at his fingertips. He could stop the alien fleets with a thought. He could make humans the rulers of the galaxy. He could have revenge on everyone who had ever mocked him or treated him badly. But as he looked at the screens showing his homeworld, he thought about what his ancestors had learned. Power without wisdom was dangerous. The ability to destroy was not the same thing as the right to destroy. "I know what I have to choose," Taiho said. He reached out to the controls, but instead of using them to claim power for himself or for humanity, he did something else. He activated every ancient outpost and archive ship that the first builders had left, scattered across the galaxy, not to attack or conquer, but to teach. All across the galaxy, ancient sites that had been thought to be natural phenomena suddenly came to life. They began broadcasting the true history of galactic civilization. They showed the evidence of how the various species had been created and guided by the first builders. Most importantly, they showed why the first builders had chosen to give up their power. "You have chosen wisely," Arya said with obvious pride. "You have chosen the path of a teacher, not a conqueror." The ancient ship around them began to change. Systems that had been dormant for millions of years came online. But instead of weapons of destruction, they were tools of creation and protection. Just as the alien fleets fired their planet-killer weapons at the ship, a barrier of pure energy appeared around it. The massive weapons that could destroy worlds simply bounced off harmlessly. Taiho was no longer just a maintenance worker from Cosmic Unity Station. He was the inheritor of the first builder's legacy. But unlike his ancestors, he had learned the most important lesson of all. True power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect and guide others toward a better future. The real test was just beginning. The alien fleet stopped their attack when their most powerful weapons failed to even scratch the ancient ship's defenses. Across the galaxy, the activated archives were broadcasting evidence that no one could ignore or deny. Archaeological sites on hundreds of worlds were coming to life, revealing artifacts and records that proved the true history of galactic civilization. Admiral Kixanal of the Hegemony Empire was the first to break the stunned silence. His voice came through the communications channel, filled with rage and disbelief. "This is some kind of trick. Humans are primitive creatures. They could never possess such technology." But even as he spoke, the evidence was mounting on every world. Ancient ruins that had been studied for thousands of years were suddenly revealing their secrets. They showed clear images of the first builders, and those images looked unmistakably human. On the planet Zelthara, homeworld of Commander Vextar's species, archaeologists were reporting incredible discoveries. The ancient temple that had been the center of their religion for millennia was now displaying holographic records. These records showed the creation of the first Zeltharians by beings who looked exactly like humans. Similar discoveries were happening across the galaxy. Every major species was learning that their oldest myths and legends were actually historical records of their creation by the first builders. Inside the ancient ship, Taiho watched these revelations unfold on the great screens around him. Arya stood beside him, monitoring the reactions from across the galaxy. "Many of them will refuse to believe this," Arya said. "They will say the evidence is fake." "Some will," Taiho agreed. "But others will see the truth, and that will be enough to start changing things." On Cosmic Unity Station, the alien boarding parties had stopped their search for Taiho. They were too busy dealing with the communications flooding in from their homeworlds. Every species was demanding answers about the archaeological discoveries. Commander Vextar stood in the station's main communication center, staring at reports from Zelthara. His people were in chaos. Everything they had believed about their origins and their superiority over humans was being proven wrong. Dr. Yoon Dae-sung tried to get his attention. "Commander, What should we do about the human prisoner situation? Vextar did not answer. He was reading a report that his own scientists had confirmed. The evidence was real. The holographic records could not be faked with current technology. Humans really were the descendants of the first builders. Meanwhile, in space around the station, the alien fleets were beginning to argue among themselves. Some wanted to continue their attack on the ancient ship. Others wanted to retreat and deal with the crisis on their home worlds. A few were beginning to suggest that maybe they should try to communicate with whoever was controlling the ship. That was when Tejo made his first public communication since entering the ship. His image appeared on every screen in the fleet, on every world where the archives had activated and throughout the galaxy. "My name is Kim Tejo," he said calmly. "I am a maintenance engineer from Cosmic Unity Station. I am also a descendant of the first builders, as are all humans." The reaction was immediate. Some alien commanders started shouting that it was impossible. Others demanded proof. A few went completely silent. "I know this is difficult to accept," Tejo continued. "Your species have spent thousands of years believing that humans were inferior. You have treated us as servants and primitives, but the evidence now speaks for itself." Admiral Kixnall's voice broke through the chaos. "Even if this is true, it means nothing. Humans are still weak. You have no armies, no great weapons." "You are right," Tejo said. "Humans are not a military power. We do not have vast fleets or planet-destroying weapons, but we have something else." The screens around the galaxy changed to show images from Earth. They showed human cities, human art, human music, human families. They showed humans helping each other during disasters. Humans exploring space not for conquest but for knowledge. Humans working together despite their differences. "We have the wisdom that our ancestors learned," Tejo said. "They discovered that true strength does not come from the power to destroy but from the ability to create and protect. They learned that being a god is not as important as being a good person." Elder Zixara of the Ethereal Collective was the first alien leader to speak thoughtfully instead of angrily. "If what you say is true, young human, then what do you want from us? Do you claim the right to rule over the species your ancestors created?" "No," Tejo said firmly. "That is exactly what my ancestors learned not to do. I do not want to rule anyone. I want to offer something better." "What?" "Partnership. The first builders made a mistake when they tried to control everything. But they also made a mistake when they abandoned everything. The right path is somewhere in between." Tejo gestured, and the screen showed new images. They were designs for incredible technologies. Faster than light travel that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. Medical devices that could cure any disease. Environmental systems that could restore dead worlds to life. "The ancient archives contain knowledge that could benefit everyone," Tejo said. "Not weapons of conquest, but tools of creation. I offer to share this knowledge freely with all species, but only under one condition." "What condition?" asked Fleet Commander Nixara. "That we work together as equals. No more master species and servant species. No more treating any intelligent beings as inferior. We move forward together, or we do not move forward at all." The silence that followed was deafening. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the idea that some species were naturally superior to others. Now a human maintenance worker was asking them to abandon that entire system. Commander Vextar finally spoke, and his voice was very different from before. Gone was the arrogance and contempt. Now he sounded uncertain, almost afraid. "Human, Tejo, if we accept this partnership, what guarantee do we have that humans will not use this knowledge to dominate us as your ancestors once did?" "You have the same guarantee that we humans have always had," Tejo replied. "None. All any of us can do is choose to trust each other and try to be better than we were before." "And if some species refuse your offer?" "Then they refuse. I will not force anyone to accept. The knowledge will remain available to those who want to learn, but no one will be compelled." Admiral Kixnall was still not convinced. "This could be an elaborate trick to make us lower our defenses." "Admiral," Tejo said patiently, "if I wanted to destroy your fleet, I could have done it already. The same technology that created the barrier around this ship could easily destroy your vessels. But I chose protection instead of destruction. That should tell you something about human intentions." Slowly, carefully, Elder Zixara spoke again. "I have studied human behavior for many years. In all that time, I have never seen humans start a war of conquest. They fight when attacked, but they do not seek to dominate others. Perhaps Perhaps they really have learned the lesson their ancestors struggled with. The Ethereal Collective accepts your offer of partnership, Zixara announced formally. One by one, other species began to follow. Not all of them, and not without debate and argument, but enough to begin building something new. Commander Vextar was among the last to speak. When he did, his words were careful and formal. Cosmic Unity Station accepts the partnership, and I, personally, apologize for my treatment of humans and of you specifically, Engineer Kim. Apology accepted, Commander, Tejo said, but more importantly, forgiven. Months later, Tejo stood in the same maintenance bay where he had once been mocked and dismissed, but now the bay had been converted into a center for sharing ancient technologies. Beings from dozens of species worked together, learning from each other and from the archives. Vexitar approached him, carrying a cup of coffee in 2 of his 4 hands. I brought this for you, he said awkwardly. I am still learning how to be a colleague instead of a superior. Thank you, Tejo said, accepting the coffee. And thank you for trying. That is all any of us can do. Do you ever regret it? Vextar asked. You could have made yourself Emperor of the Galaxy. Instead, you chose to remain a maintenance engineer. Tejo smiled as he watched humans and aliens working together on a new faster-than-light engine design. His sister So Young was there, having recovered from her injuries. Hana was there translating between different species. Jinwoo and Dohyun were there, teaching alien engineers about human problem-solving techniques. I am not just a maintenance engineer anymore, Tejo said. I am a maintenance engineer who helps maintain the peace and cooperation of the galaxy. I cannot think of a more important job than that. In the distance, through the viewport, they could see Earth shining like a blue jewel among the stars. It was no longer seen as the home of a primitive species, but as the birthplace of the teachers who had learned that the greatest power was the power to lift others up. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements. Some species still refused to accept the new partnership, but for the first time in galactic history, there was hope for something better. And it had all started with a maintenance worker who refused to let others tell him he was not good enough. Sometimes the people who get mocked the most are the ones